Again, whatever H.H. murmured may be omitted, I think. "I'm leaving tonight. This is all yours. Only you'll never, never see that miserable brat again. Get out of this room." Reader, I did. I went up to the ex-semi-studio. Arms akimbo, I stood for a moment quite still and self-composed, surveying from the threshold the raped little table with its open drawer, a key hanging from the lock, 4 other household keys on the tabletop. I walked across the landing into the Humbert's bedroom and calmly removed my diary from under her pillow into my pocket. Then I started to walk downstairs, but stopped halfway. She was talking on the telephone, which happened to be plugged just outside the door of the living room. I wanted to hear what she was saying. She cancelled an order for something or other and returned to the parlour. I rearranged my respiration and went through the hallway to the kitchen. There I opened a bottle of scotch. She could never resist scotch. Then I walked into the dining room and from there, through the half-open door, contemplated Charlotte's broad back. "You're ruining my life and yours," I said quietly. "Let us be civilized people. It is all your hallucination. You're crazy, Charlotte. The notes you found were fragments of a novel. Your name and hers were put in by mere chance, just because they came in handy. Don't think it over. I shall bring you a drink." She neither answered nor turned, but went on writing in a scorched scrawl whatever she was writing. A third letter, presumably. 2 in stamped envelopes were already laid out on the desk. I went back to the kitchen. I set out 2 glasses, to St. Algebra, to Lowe, and opened the refrigerator. It roared at me viciously while I removed the ice from its heart. Rewrite. Let her read it again. She will not recall details. Change. Forge. Write a fragment and show it to her, or leave it lying around. Why do faucets sometimes whine so horribly? A horrible situation, really. The little pillow-shaped blocks of ice, pillows for polar teddy bear, Lo, emitted rasping, crackling, tortured sounds as the warm water loosened them in their cells. I bumped down the glasses side by side. I poured in the whiskey and a dram of soda. She had tabooed my pin. Bark and bang went the icebox. Carrying the glasses, I walked through the dining room and spoke through the parlour door, which was a fraction ajar, not quite space enough for my elbow. "I've made you a drink," I said. She didn't answer, the mad bitch, and I placed the glasses on the sideboard near the telephone, which had started to ring. "Leslie speaking. Leslie Thompson," said Leslie Thompson, who favoured a dip at dawn. "Mrs. Humbert, sir, has been run over, and you'd better come quick." I answered, perhaps a bit testily, that my wife was safe and sound, and still holding the receiver, I pushed open the door and said, "There's this man saying you've been killed, Charlotte." But there was no Charlotte in the living room. I rushed out. The far side of our steep little street presented a peculiar sight. A big black, glossy Packard had climbed Miss Opposite's sloping lawn at an angle from the sidewalk, where a tartan lap-robe had dropped in a heap, and stood there, shining in the sun, its doors open like wings, its front wheels deep in evergreen shrubbery. To the anatomical right of this car, on the trim turf of the lawn slope, an old gentleman with a white moustache, well-dressed, double-breasted grey suit, polka-dotted bow tie, lay supine, his long legs together, like a death-size wax figure. I have to put the impact of an instantaneous vision into a sequence of words. Their physical accumulation in the page impairs the actual flash, the sharp unity of impression. Rug-heap car, old man doll, Miss O's nurse running with a rustle, half-empty tumbler in her hand back to the screened porch, where the propped-up, imprisoned, decrepit lady herself may be imagined screeching, but not loud enough to drown the rhythmical yaps of the junk-setter walking from group to group, from a bunch of neighbours already collected on the sidewalk, near the bit of checked stuff, and back to the car which she had finally run to earth, and then to another group on the lawn consisting of Leslie, 2 policemen, and a sturdy man with tortoiseshell glasses. At this point I should explain that the prompt appearance of the patrolman, hardly more than a minute after the accident, was due to their having been ticketing the illegally parked cars in a cross lane 2 blocks down the grade, that the fellow with the glasses was Frederick Beale, Jr., driver of the Packard, that his 79-year-old father, whom the nurse had just watered on the green bank where he lay, a banked banker, so to speak, was not in a dead faint, but was comfortably and methodically recovering from a mild heart attack or its possibility. And finally, that the lap robe on the sidewalk, where she had so often pointed out to me with disapproval the crooked green cracks, concealed the mangled remains of Charlotte Humbert, who had been knocked down and dragged several feet by the Beale car as she was hurrying across the street to drop 3 letters in the mailbox at the corner of Miss Opposite's lawn. These were picked up and handed to me by a pretty child in a dirty pink frock, and I got rid of them by clawing them to fragments in my trouser pocket. 3 doctors and the Farlows presently arrived on the scene and took over. The widower, a man of exceptional self-control, neither wept nor raved. He staggered a bit, that he did, but he opened his mouth only to impart such information or issue such directions as were strictly necessary in connection with the identification, examination, and disposal of a dead woman, the top of her head a porridge of bone, brains, bronze hair, and blood. The sun was still a blinding red when he was put to bed in Dolly's room by his 2 friends, Gentle John and the dewy-eyed Jean, who, to be near, retired to the Humberts' bedroom for the night, which, for all I know, they may not have spent as innocently as the solemnity of the occasion required.